Water, water everywhere, but not a drop to drink. This is a line from a poem in my school textbook. Though taken completely out of context, I think it quite aptly describes the state in which the human race is heading towards water resources today. It, in fact, quite aptly describes what I want to talk about today as well. Water constitutes 60% of the human body. It, in fact, makes up almost 70% of the surface of the earth. The human race is very intricately dependent on our water resources, whether it be for consumption, whether it be for livelihood, or for trade. And yet, for a resource that has so much importance in our lives, we seem to be polluting it quite carelessly. Over the next few minutes, I would like to bring before you 5 main points that will help me communicate my stance to you and maybe make you think about this problem as well. First, I would like to talk about the importance of awareness. We are all, I think, in general, quite aware about water pollution as a problem. We hear about it in school, we hear about it in social media, and I think just about everyone from the young school going child to the old grandpa knows about water pollution. But then, do we really understand what it is becomes the question. I think not. Most of us know that water pollution exists, but we don't understand the true depth of the problem. We don't understand where it comes from. We don't understand its impact. And we don't really understand what we can do to help solve the problem. So then, is it really good enough to just know about it? No, it isn't. So while we are all aware about the problem, I think we do very little to find a solution for it. The second point I'd like to talk about is economy. I think one of the best ways to solve the problem of water pollution would be to make all our industries sustainable, because industries seem to be one of the major contributing factors to water pollution. Whether it be agriculture, whether it be fisheries, or whether it be manufacturing, they all have a huge contribution to water pollution. So just making them sustainable should solve the problem, right? Yes, but we don't look at the complexities in that. Let's just take the example of India. If you look at agriculture, which happens to contribute to almost 60% of our GDP and employs almost 70% of the population of this country, you will realize that agriculture is actually a huge polluter of water. Not just that, it has an enormous consumption of water. You might say, hey, let's just do crop rotation. Let's do integrated farming management. Let's do better drainage. Let's find alternative pesticide sources. Great. But what we forget is that most of our farmers don't come from very good economic backgrounds. Almost 50% of our farmers are below poverty line. How then do we expect them to implement all these measures when most of these people depend on a seasonal crop for their food? If crops die out, they struggle. So how do we expect them to rotate crops when they have no risk management in place? Right? Now, if we look at fisheries, we have a similar problem. If we look at industries, you might say, hey, let's just switch all the machinery with more sustainable ones so that they don't pollute our environment. Great. But have you ever thought about the cost that the industry will incur? For every machine that they buy, it costs them a lot of rupees more. And where do you think this money will come from if you want to change all these industries overnight? They will come from the wages of the laborers that work in these industries. And do you think it is fair to cut out the wage of these laborers who are barely able to make ends meet? I don't think so. So while it sounds great to say let's make our industry sustainable, it's easier said than done. The third point I'd like to talk about is legislation. All the countries of the world have come together on various occasions to pledge to take care of the environment, to pledge to prevent pollution of our resources. And while we would expect a massive impact from all these meetings and conversations, we see very little being done. Why is that? Have you ever thought about it? I think it's because of the fact that not just a single government, but I think all governments in the world are very closely tied with businesses. And businesses require the exploitation of nature and its resources to manufacture economically, to function economically. So automatically, governments are not truly looking at the most sustainable option, they're looking at the most beneficial option. So if our governments are not sensitized, who then makes these laws? If our governments are not sensitized, how do we ensure that those that are trying to be sustainable or those that need to be sustainable actually go in that direction? While some might argue that activism is a great beginning, I would say yes, it's a great beginning, but is it enough? No, it's not. We need people in power. We need the change makers to be aware. We need them to take action, and that is when we can truly see a difference. And I don't think that that'll happen anytime in the near future. The fourth point I'd like to talk about is sewage. Sewage, or our waste material, seems to be one of the highest polluters of water, both in terms of rivers and oceans. They go and they destroy the ecosystem of all the water resources that they're dumped in. But one would say, look at countries like Singapore, look at countries like America, look at Australia. They have these enormous sewage treatment plants that happen to recycle water. In fact, they recycle water to the extent to which they can be used for manufacturing and even drinking. But then, is it possible to do this in all countries? No. In most countries, citizens are still fighting for basic rights. They're fighting for sanitation, they're fighting for food, they're fighting for a roof over their head and a basic quality of life. Do you then think that their main priority will be a fancy underground sewage system? Most definitely not. And while it is important, there is no way to convince a man who's not able to get food on his plate that he needs to recycle his water and he needs to pay to get that done. The fifth and most important point I'd like to talk about is nuclear energy. I think since the end of the Second World War, nuclear energy has been talked about. It's the buzzing topic. But we all are aware that it has various adverse effects. One such adverse effect or one such downside to it is nuclear waste material. I will just cite the example of the US. The US during the Cold War did a whole bunch of nuclear tests, and all the waste material from these nuclear tests was shipped off to an island called the Marshall Islands in the Pacific. These are a bunch of small islands with about 1,000, 2,000 inhabitants, and a huge cement dome was built there, and all this nuclear waste material was put inside and sealed. We assume, yay, everything is good, we are safe, this nuclear material is never going to come back to trouble us again. That's where we were wrong. Today, the Marshall Islands is one of the most radioactive zones in the world. With the rise in sea levels, this waste material is now leaking out into the oceans, making our oceans radioactive. Now imagine every country does this. They make these huge cement domes and either put them underground or in the ocean. Do you think all these will not have an adverse effect? Of course they'll have an adverse effect. And these will in fact become one of the main and most drastic cause of water pollution in the world. I think what we really have to look at on the whole is the economy, the people, especially the developing countries. Because to make water resource clean, to make ourselves sustainable as a planet, we have to ensure that everybody has equitable access to all resources. Because that division in power is the basic starting cause of all these problems. While having said all of this and while having shown you the grim reality of water pollution, I would also like to point out that this is not the end of the world. The fact that we have a very adverse problem in our hands, which seems to have no solution at the moment, is the best opportunity to find a solution. While we may not see a bright future today, who is to decide that we might not see it tomorrow? Because it does really take the darkest of times to find light, does it not?